off Highway 287 just after dark, dust still hanging in the Texas air. 2 weeks early from a drilling job, thinking I'd surprise her there. Had roses on the passenger seat, a diamond necklace wrapped in blue. Spent 14 days counting down the hours, dreaming of getting back to you. Then I saw her Silverado parked beside a truck I didn't know. Underneath the porch light glowing like a warning I should have seen before. The screen door slammed, I heard her laugh, the same one that used to stop my heart. But that night it sounded different, like somebody tearing me apart. Her Silverado in his driveway, the pictures burned into my mind. One look was all it took to know she left our forever behind. I gave her my trust, my name, my plans, every dream I was holding tight. Now all that's left are taillights fading into the middle of the night. She tried to talk when she saw me standing there, tears already in her eyes, said it wasn't supposed to happen, like that could make it right. I dropped the roses in the gravel, set that little blue box down, then climbed back in my old F-150 and drove without a sound. Her Silverado in his driveway, the pictures burned into my mind. One look was all it took to know she left our forever behind. I gave her my trust, my name, my plans, every dream I was holding tight. Now all that's left are taillights fading into the middle of the night. 3 months later I sold the house, moved west toward New Mexico. Some scars don't heal all at once, some wounds leave lessons in your soul. I learned that love ain't measured by the promises people make, it's what they're still protecting when nobody's awake. Yeah, her Silverado in his driveway still crosses my mind sometimes, but it don't break me like it used to. It just reminds me of that night, 'cause losing her taught me something about the man I wanna be. You can't build a future with someone who's already halfway gone to leave. So I let the memory roll away like dust across the Texas sky, and left her Silverado in his driveway, back where it belongs tonight. In the corner of Gate 12 at Nashville International, sat an old upright piano worn smooth from years of travelers' hands. Businessmen, young dreamers, soldiers heading overseas would stop and play a song or two before disappearing with the breeze. Most folks walked right past it, chasing flights and deadlines fast, never knowing every scratch upon that wood belonged to someone's past. But every Tuesday just past noon, an old man took that seat and played melodies so beautiful the whole terminal grew still. Nobody knew his story much, except he wore a faded cap and carried a photograph folded in his jacket flap. One afternoon I missed my flight and wound up listening near when he started playing Amazing Grace. I noticed tears. After the crowd had drifted off, I finally asked his name. He smiled and said, "I'm Walter, music's why I came." Then he pointed to the photograph he'd carried all those years, a young woman at that same piano, smiling ear to ear. At the piano at gate 12, time slows down for a little while. Strangers become stories, and sorrow learns to smile. Every note carries somebody, every chord recalls a name, and for a few sweet minutes, we're all travelers just the same. He told me back in '89 his wife sang in local bars before cancer took her voice and left silence where songs are. On her final day, she made him promise through the pain, don't let the music leave this world when I can't sing again. So every Tuesday for 20 years he'd come and keep that vow, playing her favorite songs for people rushing through somehow. And nobody realized the reason behind those melodies until a reporter shared the story nationwide one week. At the piano at gate 12, time slows down for a little while. Strangers become stories, and sorrow learns to smile. Every note carries somebody, every chord recalls a name, and for a few sweet minutes, we're all travelers just the same. The next Tuesday something happened no one there could have planned. 100 people gathered round, singing softly hand in hand. Flight crews, kids and weary strangers filled the terminal with sound, and Walter sat there crying as his wife's favorite song echoed around. Now the piano at gate 12 still stands beneath those airport lights, and every Tuesday people gather before their flights take flight. Some come for the music, some come for the story told, but everyone leaves remembering that love can outlive growing old. Yeah, the piano at gate 12 still keeps her song was cleaning out the boathouse down by Beaver Lake, just outside of Rogers, Arkansas, when I found an old green tackle box covered in dust and spider webs. It belonged to my grandpa Eddie, best fisherman this town had known. Been gone near 15 summers now, but somehow that place still felt like home. Inside were lures and faded bobbers, a pocket knife worn smooth with age, and underneath a bundle of line I found an envelope tucked away. There was a photograph of Grandma June standing by the water in '58, and a little gold ring wrapped in paper with words scribbled on the page. It said, if you find this ring someday, don't wait too long to say what your heart's afraid to say. Life moves faster than a river runs, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. I almost lost your grandma once, too stubborn to tell her how I felt. Son, love's the only thing worth risking for. That note hit me like a bell. That night I drove across the county to a little house on Maple Street, where a girl I'd loved since high school days had nearly become a memory. We sat beneath her front porch light while crickets sang through the dark. And for the first time in my whole life, I spoke straight from the heart. It said, if you find this ring someday, don't wait too long to say what your heart's afraid to say. Life moves faster than a river runs, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. I almost lost your grandma once, too stubborn to tell her how I felt. Son, love's the only thing worth risking for. That note hit me like a bell. 3 months later, down by the shoreline, where the water caught the evening glow, I slipped that old gold ring onto her hand and watched happy tears start to flow. Some treasures never come from the water, they're the ones hidden deep in your soul. Yeah, I found that ring someday, and I finally found the words I was afraid to say. Life still moves like a river runs, but now I ain't facing it alone. every time I look at her smile, I thank him for holding on to that ring so long. Yeah, love was waiting in a tackle box all along.
There's a pawn shop on the edge of Tulsa by the railroad line, where old guitars and wedding rings wait to outrun harder times. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, killing time on my lunch break, I walked inside that dusty room just to get out of the rain. Behind a shelf of hunting boots and yellowed photographs hung a battered violin with a crack across its back. A handwritten tag beneath it read, "Not for sale today." And something about that little note made me stop and stay. The owner was an old man named Charlie Reed, who'd worked that counter 40 years, maybe more than he believed. I asked him why that violin never seemed to leave the wall. He smiled and poured us both some coffee, and he told me it all. Back in '87, when the old fields went bust, a young father brought it in because he had to feed his son. Said he'd buy it back someday when life got back on track. But the years kept moving forward, and he never made it back. So the violin in the pawn shop waits, like a promise frozen in time and space, for a hand that remembers every note it knew, for a dream that never quite made it through. Some things are worth more than money can say, more than a price tag fading away. And every scar in that old wood sings of the lives we carry and little things. A month later, Charlie called me out of the blue. Said, "You ain't gonna believe who's standing here wanting news." An old man with silver hair and hands worn thin with age had walked into the shop asking about that very case. He said, "My daddy used to play that fiddle every night till hard times took it from him. When I was just a child, he passed before he got it back, but he spoke about it still, and I promised if I found it, I'd bring it home for him." Now the violin from the pawn shop sings
we carry in little things. At night the family gathered on the porch under Oklahoma stars, and for the first time in 40 years they heard their grandfather's song, not from a record or a story told, but from strings alive once more. And every note seemed to open up a long-forgotten door. Yeah, the violin from the pawn shop came home after decades wandering alone, and the music filled the spaces time had left behind. Now when the evening settles down and the crickets start their choir, that old fiddle tells a story that survives every fire. 'Cause love don't disappear with years, and dreams don't always die. Sometimes they just wait patiently for the right hands to arrive.
Rode into Cedar Creek at 10:30 with a rusted duffel bag and a past full of sin. The church bell rang through the Alabama air like it still remembered a boy who grew up there. Mama's porch light glowed at the end of the lane, same white swing, same window pane. I stood in the gravel with my boots in the dust, wondering if this town still had room for us. 10 years gone chasing city neon signs, trading quiet sunsets for overtime. I lost a good woman somewhere along the way, missed birthdays and Christmas Day. Daddy's old toolbox sat beside the barn, covered in rust but still holding strong. That's when I learned what I'd been running from. A man ain't rich if he's got no one. I'm back to Cedar Creek, back where the river bends, back to the front porch nights and my oldest friends, back where the stars still shine without the city lights, back to the roots I left behind. I thought freedom lived somewhere far away down endless highways I could never stay, but every road I took led me to see home was waiting back in Cedar Creek for me. Now the wheat fields dance in the evening wind, and the boy I was is alive again. Mama laughs while the coffee brews, talking about all the things I used to do. The scars are there, but they don't define. Every wrong turn shaped this life of mine, and when the sun drops low beyond the trees, I finally feel a little peace. I'm back to Cedar Creek, back where the river bends, back to the front porch nights and my oldest friends, back where the stars still shine back in Cedar Creek for me. The miles don't disappear, they become part of your soul. Every broken mile marker helped me find the road. And the man looking back in that old truck glass, I ain't the same young fool from the past. I'm back to Cedar Creek, where the church bells ring, where the river keeps telling the same sweet thing, where forgiveness grows like summer rain, washing years of hurt away. I spent a lifetime searching for what I couldn't see. Turns out home was the thing that rescued me. And under these Alabama stars tonight, I'm finally where my heart belongs. Main Street, Tennessee, late July heat. I was fixing up a Chevy across from Maple Street when I looked up from the engine and caught a glimpse inside a little bridal shop with lace hanging in the light. There she stood by the window with a tape measure in hand, pinning up a wedding gown, humming with the radio band. A strand of hair kept falling, she kept brushing it away, and somehow that simple moment stole my breath that day. For weeks I'd find excuses just to walk that side of town. Need a coffee, need some nails, anything to come around. She'd wave through the glass and smile every time we met, the kind that makes a man believe in things he ain't believed in yet. Then one Friday after closing, as the sun was sinking low, I finally crossed the street instead of letting another chance go. We talked until the courthouse clock struck 10:30, and before I drove away, I knew I'd see her again. She was a dress in the window, the answer I never knew I needed, like a light shining soft through the evening glow. When my heart had nearly quit believing, she didn't crash into my life like a storm rolling through. She came slow like a summer sunset, painting everything new. And every road I traveled led me somehow to the dress in the window and the girl I fell into. 3 years later on a Sunday, church bells filled the air. The whole town gathered smiling as she walked down the aisle there. And hanging in the front display where I first saw her stand was the very dress she'd stitched herself with her own 2 hands. I watched her coming toward me through the tears in her eyes,
and every prayer I'd whispered finally felt alive. Funny how forever started with a glance across the street, and a man too shy to walk over and speak. She was the dress in the window, the answer I never knew I needed, like a light shining soft through the evening glow. When my heart had nearly quit believing, she didn't crash into my life like a storm rolling through. She came slow like a summer sunset, painting everything new. And every road I traveled led me somehow to the dress in the window, and the girl I fell into. Now there's a little girl sleeping upstairs tonight, with her mama's green eyes and her smile so bright. And sometimes when I lock up the garage after dark, I still look across Main Street and thank God where it all started. Yeah, she was the dress in the window, a simple moment nobody else would have seen. But some of the greatest love stories begin in places ordinary as can be. Now that old shop still glows every evening downtown, and every time her laughter drifts around, I'm reminded that forever sometimes starts with a view of a dress in the window, and a dream coming true.
Station clock stopped working years ago, just hangs there crooked in the Tennessee cold. But every Friday night at 9:30, that old freight train still rolls by. I sit on the bench where we carved our names, back when forever sounded easy to say. The paint's all peeling from the depot walls, but some memories never fade at all. You left this town in the summer of '99, chasing California dreams and city lights. I stayed behind with a mechanic's wage, fixing engines while the years turned pages. Folks said I'd forget you after all this time, but they never saw those blue-green eyes, or heard the promises we whispered low as that midnight whistle echoed through the hills. Like the last train through Pine Hollow, you come and go inside my mind, rolling through the dark of memory, leaving old sparks waits beside that train. Last October, I got a handwritten note. No return address, just a familiar stroke. It said I'll be passing through next Friday night. If you're there, maybe we'll make things right. I read those words 100 times or more, standing in my garage by the open door, wondering if fate still worked that way, or if some dreams arrive too late. Like the last train through Pine Hollow, you come and go inside my mind, rolling through the dark of memory, leaving old sparks behind. Every whistle sounds like your goodbye, every rail still carries your name, and no matter how many years roll by, my heart still waits beside that train. The headlights cut through the mountain mist, the whistle cried across the ridge. Then I saw you step down from that rail car door, just like the girl I'd loved before. A little older, a little worn, but smiling like she'd finally come home. Like the last train through Pine Hollow, you came back through the night, rolling out of all those lost years, and somehow made them right. Now the whistle sounds like hope again, not a ghost I can't outrun. And every Friday when that train rolls through, it reminds me love ain't done. Yeah, some hearts keep holding on till the last train finally brings you home. On a gravel road in northern Montana, where the winters cut like glass, there stood a one-room general store that somehow still managed to last. The sign was faded, the floorboards grown, the coffee pot stayed warm, and folks stopped in for more than feed whenever there was a storm. Oh, Miss Evelyn ran the place since 1979. She knew every kid, every ranch, every hard and troubled time. But what folks talked about the most was a rusty iron key hanging from a nail above the door for everybody to see. Nobody locked their houses much back when the town was young, but times changed like the weather, and trust grew harder to come by. Still that key stayed hanging there through every passing year, and if you asked Miss Evelyn why, she'd smile and say it's here. For the day somebody needs it more than pride will let them say. For the day a soul gets stranded and can't find another way. And she'd pour another coffee and go back to her routine, leaving folks to wonder for what she really meant. That's the key above the door, for the lost and the worn, for the hearts carrying burdens they weren't meant to carry alone. When the road gets dark and lonely, when hope gets hard to find, there's still a place in this world where somebody leaves a light behind. Then came the blizzard of '08, worst anybody knew. The white walls of snow swallowed fences, trucks, and every familiar view. A ranch hand named Gill got caught 30 miles from town. His engine quit, his radio died, and the temperature kept dropping down. By pure luck he found the store near midnight in the storm. The windows dark, the streets deserted, not another soul around. But there beside the entrance, hanging where it always had been, was that rusty iron key and a note tucked underneath. It said, if you're reading this tonight, come inside and get warm. There's soup in the freezer, blankets in the back room. Pay it forward when you can. That's the key above the door, for the lost and the worn, for the hearts carrying burdens they weren't meant to carry alone. When the road gets dark and lonely, when hope gets hard to find, there's still a place in this world where somebody leaves a light behind. The next spring folks gathered round and asked Miss Evelyn why. She said, my daddy taught me something before the day he died. He said, kindness ain't kindness if it waits for recognition. The best things people do are usually done unseen. Now the key above the door still hangs where it hung before, and travelers tell stories about what that little town stands for. Not the mountains or the cattle, not the rivers running wide, but the simple faith that somebody will help you through the night. Yeah, the key above the door still leaves a light behind. The scoreboard lights were flickering above the 50-yard line. October wind rolled through the stands on a cold Nebraska night. I sat alone on the top row where I used to hear them cheer. Now the bleachers felt a little bigger with every passing year. There was a time I wore that jersey with my number on the back. Thought Friday nights would last forever underneath those stadium lamps. But life moves faster than a fastball and stronger than your plans. One day you're chasing glory, next day you're shaking working hands. punch the clock at sunrise at the grain mill by the tracks. Got 2 kids who wear my old cleats and a mortgage on my back. The mirror shows a little gray where the dark used to be, and the dreams I thought I'd lost are staring from the stands at me. My oldest boy ran onto the field wearing number 23. Same nervous smile I used to hide before the referee's whistle blew for me. And suddenly I understood what all those years were for. Some victories arrive much later than the ones you keep in score. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights, one more harvest moon hanging over Friday night, one more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table, one more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The game was tied in the 4th quarter with 2 minutes left to play. My boy threw a pass downfield and the whole town lost its mind that day. The crowd erupted like thunder rolling across the plains, but what hit me harder was the pride running through my veins. Afterward we drove home slowly beneath the starry sky. He talked about the winning play while I just smiled and drove, because someday he'll leave this town and chase a dream beyond these roads. And when he does, I hope he learns the thing I finally know. Give me one more season of sunsets and small town lights, one more harvest moon hanging over Friday night, one more chance to stand beside the people I call mine. 'Cause the best things in this life don't last forever, they just borrow time. One more season of laughter around the kitchen table, one more season of faith when life gets unstable. Every year keeps teaching me what matters most to hold. You don't count your life in trophies, you count it in the souls. The wheat turns gold and falls away, winter comes and spring returns again. The years keep rolling like a train, but every season leaves a gift behind. And when the final whistle blows, I won't remember every score, I'll remember who was standing there when I walk through every door. So give me one more season of ordinary days, one more sunrise shining through the window's dusty haze, one more Sunday church bell echoing through the air, one more chance to tell my family just how much I care, one more season of memories still waiting to be made, one more season watching children slowly find their way. And when the good Lord calls me home beyond these fields of gold, I'll thank him for the seasons more than anything I own. at mile 42, along an old Wyoming trail with a mountain view. It ain't on any map you'll find in a tourist stand, just a place beside the pines where the wildflowers still dance. I first saw it one September after 14 hours on the road, hauling cattle through the bighorns with a heavy load. The sun was dropping low, painting gold across the sky, and carved into the back were words that caught my eye. If you're tired, sit a while. A year went by before I passed that way again. This time after losing my brother, my closest friend. The world felt colder than the snow, building on the peaks, and grief had stolen every answer I was trying to seek. So I pulled over by that bench as evening settled in, found a notebook and a weatherproof box tucked underneath it then, filled with notes from strangers passing through the years, written in faded ink, stained by rain and tears. At the bench at mile 42, people leave pieces of the truth, a prayer, a memory, a goodbye, a reason to keep moving through the night. Some roads are lonely, that's for sure. Some wounds take longer to endure, but hope keeps showing up somehow. At the bench at mile 42. One note came from a trucker who beat cancer in the spring. Another from a young girl learning what forgiveness means. A widow wrote about her husband and the stars he loved to see, and every page somehow felt like it was speaking straight to me. I sat there till the moon rose high above the mountain line, reading stories from strangers who had survived their hardest times. And then I took my pen and wrote my brother's name inside. For the first time since he left, I didn't feel alone that night. At the bench at mile 42, people leave pieces of the truth, a prayer, a memory, a goodbye, a reason to keep moving through the night. Some roads are lonely, that's for sure. Some wounds take longer to endure, but hope keeps showing up somehow. At the bench at mile 42, nobody knows who built it there, or who first placed that notebook down. But sometimes the best things in this world appear without a sound. Not every hero wears a badge, not every gift has a name. Sometimes healing starts with strangers who've walked through the same pain. Now every fall I stop again and add another page with a pen, watching the sunset fade beyond the blue. And when life gets heavy, when the answers disappear, I remember all those voices that I
carried people through. Yeah, hope still waits beside the pines. At the bench, had mile 42.
There's a little red bicycle hanging in the barn, covered in dust beneath the rafters and stars. The paint's chipped off, the tires are flat, but I can't bring myself to throw it out. I found it this morning while cleaning the loft. Sunlight pouring through the cracks, and just like that, I was 12 years old, with the whole world at my back. Daddy ran beside me down that gravel lane, one hand steady on the seat, said keep your eyes where you want to go, not on the ground beneath your feet. I still remember letting go of fear as the summer wind filled my face, and hearing him laugh somewhere behind me when I finally found my pace. That bicycle in the barn takes me back to who we are, before the years and all the miles, before the worries and the scars. Some things rust, some things fade, some dreams don't turn out like you planned, but a father's voice can echo forever from a bicycle in a barn. My son came out while I stood there smiling, asked Dad, what's that doing here? I pulled it down and brushed off the dust and told him stories he'd never hear. My son said we were fixing chains, pumping air into worn out tires, and for a moment 3 generations were standing in that barn together. That bicycle in the barn takes me back to who we are, before the years and all the miles, before the worries and the scars. Some things rust, some things fade, some dreams don't turn out like you planned, but a father's voice can echo forever from a bicycle in a barn. That evening down the county road, my boy wobbled, laughed and swayed, and I heard myself say the very words my daddy said that day. Keep your eyes where you wanna go. Yeah, that bicycle in the barn became more than an old memory. It carried lessons through the years like a family legacy. And when my son rode off alone with the sunset painting gold across the land,
from a bicycle in a barn. Yeah, some gifts don't come wrapped in paper. They wait for years in a dusty barn.
Grandpa's toolbox sat untouched for nearly 5 long years in the corner of the garage, collecting dust and memories. Rusty wrenches, bent-up nails, receipts from '72, and 100 little pieces of a life nobody knew. One Saturday in early spring, I finally opened it, just looking for a socket set to fix a fancy bed. But underneath the bottom tray, folded tight and worn, was a hand-drawn map on yellow paper, weathered, stained, and torn. Across the top it simply said, "For whoever finds this first," and listed roads through Missouri in a dozen little towns, with circles drawn around old places I had never heard him name, and one short note beside the edge that only said, "Take the trip someday." So I loaded up my pickup and headed down the line, following that faded map, one county road at a time. The first stop was an old diner where a waitress smiled and said, "Your granddad used to stop right here every Thursday before dawn." And that map in Grandpa's toolbox wasn't leading me to gold, it was leading me through stories that had never been told. Every turn revealed a chapter, every mile revealed a man, and I realized how little we know about the lives behind our family names. One pen led to a schoolhouse where he fixed the furnace free, another to a farmhouse where he helped a widow keep her wheat. There was a church in Kansas where he built a handicap ramp, and a riverbank in Iowa where he rescued a boy from the current's grasp. No newspaper had ever written a single word about those days, no medals hung upon his wall, no headlines praised his name. But town after town I met folks whose lives he'd quietly changed, and each story painted someone bigger than I ever known. Yeah, that map in Grandpa's toolbox wasn't leading me to gold, it was leading me through kindness he never stopped to show. Every stop revealed a lesson, every road revealed the truth. The strongest people often leave their greatest work unseen. The final mark was on a hillside overlooking fields of corn, where Grandpa used to watch the sunset when he felt tired and worn. There I found a small tin box buried underneath the stone. Inside was one last letter, written in his careful hand. It said, "If you're reading this, remember, life ain't measured by what you own, it's measured by the people smiling because you helped them carry on. And if you ever feel than the day you found it first. Now that map hangs in my hallway, where I see it every day. And whenever I get lost, it still shows me the way. First snow hit the fence lines yesterday, dusting all the cattle trails in white. I was patching up a gate on the north side ranch when I saw a truck roll in at twilight. 3 years gone since she drove away, leaving nothing but a note in the rain. Now she's standing by the old windmill like she never missed a thing. She said, I heard your mama wasn't doing well, and she looked down at her hands, the same hands that used to hold mine tight back when we made all our plans. The mountains stood silent in the distance, like they knew we had words left unsaid. And every mile she traveled since then was written in her eyes instead. Under this Montana sky tonight, the stars are burning clear and bright, like they never stopped believing we'd find our way through every lonely mile and every hard goodbye. If love's a fire, hearts never die. It just waited through the cold and time, and here we are beneath that endless light, under this Montana sky tonight. Mama smiled when she walked through the door, like a prayer had finally come true. Coffee steamed on the kitchen table, and the whole room felt brand new. We talked until the moon climbed high, about the years we can't get back. Then she reached across and touched my hand, and somehow closed every crack. Under this Montana sky tonight, the stars are burning clear and bright, like they never stopped believing we'd find our way through every lonely mile and every hard goodbye. If love's a fire, hearts never die. It just waited through the cold and time, and here we are beneath that endless light, under this Montana sky tonight. The wind still sings across the prairie grass, and tomorrow ain't promised to anyone. So I pulled her close and whispered low, I'm done running from what we've become. Under this Montana sky
Yeah, forever starts right here tonight, under this Montana sky tonight.
The auction sign went up in June beside the county road, right where my granddad carved his name in a cedar fence post. 80 years of Oklahoma dirt, 3 generations deep, was gonna leave our family when that auctioneer would speak. The drought had hit us hard that year, then harder still the next. Bank notices stacked on the table like a pile of unpaid debts. I watched my father stare across those fields of dying grain, like a captain watching helpless while his ship sank in the rain. By auction day, the whole town came, pickups lined the lane, neighbors leaning on the fences underneath the sky of gray. The tractor stood like soldiers waiting for a final call, and every tool inside that barn held memories on its walls. The auctioneer climbed on the trailer, cleared his throat and smiled, started reading numbers fast while Mama held back tears. Then from the crowd old men stepped up, folks I'd known my whole life through, and one by one they started doing something nobody expected them to do. When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud, he's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. Mrs. Parker bought the combine that her husband used to run. The sheriff bought the cattle gates, the preacher bought a gun. Not for keeping, just for saving what we thought was gone for good. Every bid became a promise written where hope once stood. Then old Hank Wilson raised his hand for the final piece of land. Silence fell across the crowd as he made his stand. He bought the acreage outright, then turned toward my dad and said, "This farm belongs to your family, that's all that needs be said." When the auction bell rang loud that day, the town stood up instead of walking away. They bought the plows, they bought the trucks, then handed every piece right back to us. And I learned right there beneath those clouds, a man ain't rich because he's proud, he's rich because when times get rough, there's a town behind him strong enough. The rain arrived 3 days later, rolling in across the plains, like heaven heard the voices of folks carrying each other's pain. Some things grow better than wheat fields, some things run deeper than roots, and when the world starts breaking, it's people that pull you through. Now every year when harvest comes and combines roll beneath the sun, I hear that auction bell again, echoing across the wind. Not as a sound of losing ground, but proof that love still gathers round. if this farm outlives my days, I'll thank that town in 1,000 ways. Yeah, the auction bell still rings somehow in every golden harvest now. There's a faded blue suit on the clothesline today, dancing in the Carolina breeze. Mama pinned it up at sunrise, right beside the bed sheets and the leaves. Most folks drive right past our farmhouse, never think twice what they see. But that old suit's got 40 years of family history. Daddy wore it when he married Mama in a church out by Miller Creek. Wore it when he held my sister, just a baby, 3 weeks old and asleep. He wore it every Easter Sunday and every funeral in town. If somebody needed help or prayer, that blue suit showed up around. That Sunday suit on the clothesline ain't just cotton thread and seams. It's every promise that he kept and every sacrifice unseen. Yeah, time may fade the color and life may wear us thin, but the things that really matter are stitched beneath the skin. Last winter we laid Daddy to rest. The church bell echoed through the pines. The pews were full of neighbors, some drove 4 hours just to arrive. Afterward, Mama couldn't bear to lock that suit away. So every spring she hangs it out and lets the sunlight touch those days. That Sunday suit on the clothesline ain't just cotton thread and seams. It's every promise that he kept and every sacrifice unseen. Yeah, time may fade the color and life may wear us thin, but the things that really matter are stitched beneath the skin. Now my little boy asks questions. Why's that jacket hanging there? And I tell him, son, that's what love looks like when a good man spends it everywhere.
That Sunday suit on the clothesline still sways beneath the southern sky, like a quiet kind of legacy that never really says goodbye. And every time the wind catches it, I can almost see him grin, 'cause the best parts of a father's life are stitched beneath our skin. Yeah, that old blue suit keeps teaching us, even now, after he's been gone.
Met her at exit 17 on a Sunday morning drive at a roadside farmer's market just outside of Caroline. She was selling jars of honey from her granddad's old beef farm, with sunlight in her brown hair and wildflowers in her arms. I stopped to buy a mason jar and head on down the road, but we got to talking about the weather and the places we called home. An hour slipped away like dust drifting through the breeze, and somehow that little roadside stand felt like where I was meant to be. Next week I came back again, pretending I needed more honey stacked up in my kitchen from the visits before. She laughed and called me out on it, said you ain't hard to read, then handed me a lemonade and pulled up a chair for me. By August we were dancing at the county fair at night, beneath a string of colored bows, glowing soft and bright. The band played an old two-step while stars filled up the sky, and I knew right then I didn't want another goodbye. She feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like a place you've never seen, but somehow always dreamed. Like the first warm sun after a week of pouring rain, like finding your way home without knowing you were lost along the way. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train, she's the steady kind of love that stays, and every day with her still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. Now there's a porch swing by the farmhouse where we watch the evening fade, and a little girl who runs around the yard chasing butterflies all day. The honey stand still opens every weekend in the spring, and folks still stop to buy a jar and hear the old bees sing. Sometimes I'll catch her smiling when she thinks I'm not aware, and I swear she's just as beautiful as that first morning there. Funny how a simple stop can change a whole life's course, like turning down a road you almost passed before. She feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like a place you've never seen, but somehow always dreamed. Like the first warm sun after a week of pouring rain, like finding your way home without knowing you were lost along the way. And she ain't fireworks or a every day with her still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. People talk about forever like it's some impossible thing, but forever's just 1,000 little moments in between. A cup of coffee on the porch, her hand reaching for mine. The ordinary things that make a life shine. Yeah, she feels like Sunday morning at exit 17, like the sweetest little blessing I never saw coming. Like a song the radio plays exactly when you need a reminder that the best things arrive quietly. She ain't fireworks or a runaway train. She's the steady kind of love that stays. And after all these years, she still feels like Sunday morning at exit 17. Radio crackled just past midnight on Route 84 through New Mexico. My headlights painted silver lines across a desert no one seemed to know. I'd spent 10 years hauling freight trailers, sleeping more in truck stops than at home, watching birthdays through a phone screen, always somewhere down the road. That night a song came through the static, one my little daughter used to sing back when she was 5 years old, and thought I could do anything. I pulled over by an old gas station under a buzzing neon light, and for the first time in forever I sat alone and cried. That radio on Route 84 hit me harder than ever before. Made me realize what all these miles had really cost me over time. You can chase a paycheck coast to coast, cross every state from south to north, but some things get left behind when your heart ain't where you are. By sunrise I was heading east toward Oklahoma and home again, past windmills turning in the distance, past towns I'd only passed through then. When I pulled into our gravel driveway, my daughter ran out through the yard. was nearly 16 by that summer, and suddenly I saw how much I'd missed. That radio on Route 84 hit me harder than ever before. Made me realize what all these miles had really cost me over time. You can chase a paycheck coast to coast, cross every state from south to north, but some things get left behind when your heart ain't where you are. Now I still drive, but not for weeks on end. Got a local route close to town. Sometimes success looks a whole lot different than the dreams you started out with. Yeah, that radio on Route 84 changed what I was living for. Turned a lonely highway into a sign, pointing me back to my life. Now every night when I pull in the drive and see the porch light shining warm, I thank God for one old country song and a radio on Route 84. Yeah, some roads take you far away just to show you where you belong. I was 23 and reckless, working shrimp boats off the coast. Thought I had forever waiting, thought a young man couldn't lose much. She ran the bake shop by the harbor with salt wind tangled in her hair. Every morning she'd wave me out, standing on that weathered pier. Then came September's angry waters, black clouds rolling from the sea. The radio warned all vessels, turn around immediately. But pride can be a dangerous compass when you're trying to prove you're strong. I pushed farther into open water, and before long, everything went wrong. And the lighthouse at Cape Fear cut through the storm and all my fear, like a promise shining through the rain, calling me back home again. When the waves were high as mountains and hope was hanging by a thread, that light kept reaching through the darkness till it led me back instead. The engine died around midnight and the sea threw me around. I thought about her waiting on the shoreline, praying I'd be found. Then through the sheets of rain and thunder, a single beam broke through the black. I pointed my bow toward that light and somehow found my way back. And the lighthouse at Cape Fear cut through the storm and all my fear, like a promise shining through the rain, calling me back home again. When the instead. That was 20 years ago this autumn. Now my hair's turning gray, and every time I pass that shoreline, I still bow my head and pray. Some lights are built from stone and steel, some shine inside a faithful heart, and both can save a drifting soul when the world falls apart. Yeah, the lighthouse at Cape Fear still stands against the passing years, and every time its beam sweeps by, it reminds me how close I came that night. I got the girl, we raised a family, built a life beside the sea, and it all began with the light in the storm that refused to give up on me. Yes, miracles don't make the news, they just got a man back home. There's a pair of work boots hanging from the old water tower just outside a town called Red Oak, Oklahoma. Faded leather, cracked and worn, swinging in the prairie wind since before I was born. As a kid, I'd ask my daddy every time we'd drive by, why's nobody taking those boots down from the sky? He'd just grin and say, one day you'll understand. Then he'd shift that old truck into gear and head across the land. Years later at 17, I learned the story true about a man named Caleb Ross that only old-timers knew. He worked every ranch for 50 miles around, fixing fences after storms when they came crashing down. One summer brought a wild fire racing through the plains, the kind that turns the daylight orange and makes grown men pray. When the flames jumped Miller Creek and headed straight for town, Caleb stayed behind to help while everybody else got out. And those shoes by the water tower still dance with the Oklahoma wind, like a reminder of a man who gave more than he had to give. Some folks leave behind a fortune, some leave a famous name, but some leave a town still standing, and that ain't a small thing. For 20 hours straight he worked with volunteers, digging lines and moving cattle through smoking fear. The fire finally turned away just north of County Road 9, and every family made it out with a little luck and time. The next morning when the danger passed and the sky turned blue, the town gathered at the diner trying to figure out what to do. The mayor climbed the ladder
standing near and tied those old work boots high above the water tower's veer. Now those shoes by the water tower still dance with the Oklahoma wind, like a reminder of a man who gave more than he had to give. Some folks leave behind a fortune, some leave a famous name, but some leave a town still standing, and that ain't a small thing. Caleb never liked attention, never made a speech or boast, said I only did what anybody would have done. But everyone knew better, 'cause when fear was running wild, he chose to stay and fight, while others ran for miles. So the shoes by the water tower still catch the evening sun, watching over fields of wheat and children out having fun. And every new generation asks why they're hanging there. Then somebody tells the story, and Caleb's still with us somewhere. Yeah, those shoes by the water tower still dance in the prairie air.
The doctor shook his head last April, said take it easy, slow things down. But my granddad just smiled and tipped his cap, looked out across that Oklahoma ground. 82 years in those same fields, watching seasons come and go. He said a man don't quit on the land he loves till it's time for the Lord to call him home. We planted corn beneath the rainy sky, like we'd done since I was 10. His hands were worn like old leather gloves, but they still knew where to begin. Every sunrise found him on that tractor, rolling slow through rows of green, teaching me lessons he never wrote down, in ways only farmers mean. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season hearing that meadowlark call, one more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to thank God for the rain. He said, son, life grows fast, don't miss it all. Take time to love the people standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart like one more harvest before the dark. October came with amber fields waving, the biggest crop we'd seen in years. We worked side by side through the cool morning air, laughing louder than our fears. Then one November Sunday morning, he passed away in his favorite chair, with harvest dust still on his boots, and peace resting everywhere. Just one more harvest, one more fall, one more season here and there, the meadowlark call. One more sunset painting gold on the plains, one more chance to thank God for the rain. He said, son, life grows fast, don't miss it all. Take time to love the people standing small beside you, and every word still echoes through my heart, like one more harvest before the dark. Now every spring when the fields awaken and fresh green rises from the earth, I swear I see him right in those horizons, smiling at what his life was worth. Just one more harvest, that's all he asked. Not riches, not glory, just time that lasts. To watch the weeping beneath the sky, and hold the ones he loved nearby. Now I carry on where his story ends. Through every season the good Lord sends, and when the sunset settles on those plains, I thank him for one more harvest again. Morning fog was hanging low on the Blue Ridge line, and old red barn stood crooked where we spent our younger time. I rode through town on Highway 221, past the diner by the courthouse where my story had begun. Mama's porch light faded in my rear view years ago, chasing bigger dreams through cities that never felt like home. I traded mountain sunsets for a skyline made of steel, but every mile I wandered left a wound that wouldn't heal. Worked the night shift winters in the cold Tennessee rain, carried more regrets than dollars, riding freight trains through the pain. Then a letter from my brother showed up worn and stained with age. Said, Dad still leaves your fishing pole beside the river every day. I stopped beside an overlook as daylight slipped away. Watched the mountains turn to shadows, and I heard my conscience say, some roads are meant for leaving, some are meant to bring you back. And I finally turned the wheel toward the life I used to have. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills, to the church bells ringing and the whippoorwills, to the front porch stories and the river band, where the hard times broke me and the healing began. Every wrong turn led me where I needed to go, through the storm, through the heartache, through the winding roads. Now the mountains call my name like they always will. I'm coming back, I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills. Dad was standing by the mailbox when I pulled into the drive. A little older, a little slower, but the fire was still alive. He didn't say much when he hugged me in the fading evening light. Some things don't need explaining when you've been gone half your life. Mama said an extra plate and laughed the way she used to do. The radio was playing old songs drifting through the room. And for the first time in forever, I felt the weight release, like the mountains wrapped around me and handed back my peace. I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills, to the church bells ringing and the whippoorwills, to the front porch stories and the river band, where the hard times broke me and the healing began. Every wrong turn led me where I needed to go, through the storm, through the heartache, through the winding roads. Now the mountains call my name like they always will. I'm coming back, I'm coming back to the Blue Ridge Hills. You can spend your whole life running from the boy you used to be, but the roots beneath your footsteps grow deeper than you see. And when the world gets heavy and the highway loses light, home is more than a place, it's the reason you survive. I'm finally back in the Blue Ridge Hills, where the sunrise paints the valleys and the time stands still, with my family beside me and the river rolling slow. There's a kind of peace you'll never find out on your own. Every long road brought me to this front porch view, to the memories I left and the dreams that came true. Now these mountains hold my heart like they always will. I'm finally home, I'm finally home in the Blue Ridge Hills. at Murphy's Cafe off Route 66. There's a chair by the window, table 6. Every morning at 7, the coffee gets poured, even though nobody walks through that door. Old Joe runs the place like he always has, wipes down the counter, checks the gas, and right beside the jukebox, glowing blue, sits a plate nobody ever moves. Back in 2005, a young Marine named Ben, he used to stop by every Friday with his friends. He'd order chicken fried steak and peach pie too, leave $1 in the jar before he flew. Then one spring he shipped overseas, promised his mama he'd be home by Christmas Eve. But fate had different plans that year, and the whole town learned the meaning of fear. So the empty chair at table 6 still waits where he used to sit, beside the window facing west, toward the sunset he loved best. And every soul who walks inside knows the reason why some heroes leave this world too soon, but they never really say goodbye. Years rolled by like freight trains in the night. Kids grew up and the town changed with time. The old gas station closed, the hardware store moved on, but that chair stayed right where it belonged. Then one July afternoon, a little boy asked why his grandpa always tipped his hat when he walked by. The old man smiled and pulled up a seat and told a story every child should keep, about the empty chair at table 6, still waiting where he used to sit, beside the window facing west, toward the sunset he loved best. And every soul who walks inside knows the reason why some heroes leave this world too soon, but they never really say goodbye. No statue stands in that small town square, no headlines carry his name anymore, but sometimes the strongest monuments are the ones behind ordinary doors. A cup of coffee, a faded photo, a place nobody dares replace, because memory lives a little longer when love is given space. And the empty chair at table 6 still waits where he used to sit, while the morning sun spills through the glass, and another year quietly passes. New faces come, old faces go. That's how life unfolds, but every heart that learns his story carries a piece of him forward. Yeah, the empty chair at table 6.
ain't empty after all.